Are you ready to embrace a healthier, more vibrant life? Look no further than With Joy, a transformative movement and nutrition program that goes beyond the ordinary. With Joy is not just a program, it's a movement. We believe that true wellness encompasses mind, body, and spirit. Our approach is rooted in compassion care, tailored to each individual. We're here to elevate you to a place of health, wellness, and healing. Whether you're a seasoned athlete or just starting your fitness journey, we've got something for you. Our comprehensive programs include strength, mobility, endurance, and conditioning to elevate your fitness, recovery and recuperation for healing, and nutrition wellness plans to fuel your body for optimal performance. Check out our show notes for more information and links to our programs. Join the With Joy movement today and discover a whole new way to thrive.
Hi, I'm Joy Han Silva.
And I'm Laura Han Segundo Collins.
And welcome to Hahnacity.
Hey, Joy.
Hey, Laura.
Welcome back, everyone.
Welcome back. Season 2, baby.
Season 2. Woo, woo, woo.
Yeah. How have you been? It's been a while.
It's been a while. Just busy. Lots of kid basketball. A lot of fun. Joy and I have joined the Athletes for Hope group, the Athlete Mental Health Alliance, getting connected to all kinds of amazing athletes all over the country. It's been so much fun. And developing our private practices, getting connected to people who are reaching out, seeking support. I refer out where I can and I take who I can. So it's been great. It's been really great. How you doing, Joy?
I'm doing well. Still doing my personal training and my daily Zoom classes. That's going really well, and have a really sweet community, and they're wonderful and they listen in, and yeah, it's been wonderful having that opportunity to work with them. I also have been joining Gymnasts for Change. We've been doing some support monthly meetings, and I've been able to join them, which has been so amazing. They're just wonderful human beings. And so anybody who wants to join in this peer group, it's just a really supportive healing process. And so I would encourage those to check out their page and their link, and we can send it to you guys on our page. But been doing that. We've also connected with some other amazing human beings. We just recorded an interview as well with another podcast, Condition to Win with Lisa Metzel, and that's been amazing to connect with her, and we have some great plans with her in the future as well. And so yeah, it's just really exciting. All the things that have happened within the past, gosh, like 4 months since we started this. So it's just been great. So
yeah,
good to be back.
And Joy's helping me with my knees, folks. I'm working on my knees, getting better little by little. We are taking the steps to taking care of ourselves over time.
Yeah, I mean, that's been sort of our journey. It's me encouraging you to do a little bit more physical movement, and you're encouraging me to work on my mental health. And so I started with a therapist and working with her and learning a lot about myself. And so it's been a process. And you and I both have said in the beginning, from the very first start of all of this, the goal was for our own healing journey, and we are trying to be proactive with that. So
high five.
Yay. With that, season 2 is starting, and we have an amazing group of guests coming. We're sort of venturing off from our story and wanting to introduce other people and their stories, and how storytelling is incredibly powerful, and we connect as humans through stories. And so it's really exciting that we get to do this with the season and hearing other people's journey of being an athlete.
So Joy, this is a good segue actually to our first guest of season 2, Athlete Over the Lifespan. Super, super, super excited. Let me read the bio. Rohan Piple is a behavioral health specialist with a master's in sports industry management from Georgetown University. With a deep understanding of the intricate workings of the human mind and body, he specializes in helping teams and athletes excel on and off the playing field. A former collegiate athlete and champion, Rohan intimately understands daily pressures and obstacles athletes face. His journey has fueled his passion for supporting athletes in overcoming behavioral health issues and optimizing their performance. Rohan created ASVA, a performance wellness program dedicated to helping athletes achieve peak performance and personal fulfillment. Through innovative approaches focusing on neuromuscular regeneration, re-education, and retention, he empowers athletes to find balance in mind, body, and emotions. Let's go to the interview with Rohan.
Woohoo!
Welcome, Rohan. Thanks for coming.
Appreciate it. Thank you guys for having me on.
Absolutely.
So exciting. How have you been?
Doing well. Just been busy, working with, ASVA and just different parts of my life, balancing the family stuff and all that. So, but it's been going.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Maybe you could start with sharing a little bit about you.
Yeah. My name is Rohan Piple. I'm a behavioral health specialist. But before that, I was a collegiate athlete. And so kind of like my whole basketball journey shaped, where I am today, in terms of wanting to change mental health, how people view it, and, how I can help with that. So yeah, kind of going into how, if you guys want me to start how I did the whole thing. Like I started playing basketball around seventh, eighth grade. So I moved around a lot. So, within the DMV area, Maryland, Virginia, didn't really have a whole lot of friends. Self-esteem wasn't the highest and all that. So when basketball did come to me, I found a sense of purpose, a sense of confidence. And through that, like I was able to, find friends, love, happiness. So I was like, okay, cool. Like I found something that I'm actually good at and people want to be around me with that. And so it was kind of looking back at it now, that was kind of a dangerous thing because like I put my self-worth and my identity on something external, right? So, with athletes like yourselves, like sport is very unpredictable. So imagine like your whole value and self-worth is not in your control and it's going up and down, up and down, up and down. So,
Yeah.
it was pretty exhausting. But I was able to, well, actually, I didn't play in high school. I got cut every year. But I was the
Hmm.
only one in my high school to get a Division II offer to go play.
Awesome.
Um,
That's amazing.
and then after that, I turned that down. Ended up going to Spire Academy out in Ohio, just to get like some more experience and stuff like that, like a post grad year. And then after that, I went on to go play at St. Mary's College in Maryland. Wasn't getting too much playing time, so then I decided to go up to Southern Vermont College, and that actually was a pretty cool experience. We got to win our conference championship and play in the NCAA tournament and stuff like that.
Jeez.
Um, but like during that whole journey, life outside and internally was getting worse. But yeah, at that time, I didn't know how to express myself and tell people, hey, this is what I'm going through. So I was like,
Mhm.
okay, let me just keep working harder in basketball, right? Because in my mind, I made that connection. I was like, okay, if I play better, I'll feel better about myself. But
Yeah.
the thing was like, because I put so much pressure onto the sport, I didn't play that well. So like the best way that I know, like with athletes as ourselves, like the best way we play when we play like really free and just for the fun of it. When you put a lot of pressure on that, unfortunately, the end result is not the greatest. So there's some days where I was really, really good and then really bad, and it was a whole lot of mess. But then, kind of fast forward into where wasn't really ready to let go of basketball when I finished my undergrad. So, coming from an Asian background and a community household, my parents were like,
Mm.
"Hey, we'll let you keep going with this passion of yours, but you need to get some type of, master's degree, so at least you have like a fallback plan." I was like, "Okay," I agree with them with that. So I decided to go to Georgetown University, and try to see if I can walk on and maybe use one more year eligibility.
Wow.
Um, but at that level, there's too many strings to pull, and I played well
Mhm.
and whatnot. So then my coach was like, "All right, let's try to go overseas." And so then during that same time, and kind of like full circle, that's when the pandemic hit. And at that
Mm.
point, I didn't have an outlet. I didn't have friends. I didn't have basketball. I was then forced to really sit with myself. Like it was just me versus me. And that process was very, very overwhelming to the point where, I had to step away from my dream in order to prioritize my mental health because I realized I was really hurting myself
Mm.
by continuing this journey. And it was bittersweet to step away, but it started an inward journey in terms of I want to understand my issues, learn how to overcome that, and make sure no one else had to go through that. And so it was kind of like perfect timing. Like my last year at grad school, we had to write a thesis paper, and I decided to do something about mental health and athletics, and that's where ASVA came about, and this is where we are now.
It's incredible.
That is amazing.
So,
Amazing.
Rohan, I have a quick question. Me and Laura always talk about this, about being an athlete, because there's some sort of thing on a cellular level that we all kind of like have, right? Like Laura was this kid who wanted to master everything to perfection for her sport. I was a kid that was obsessed. So I would study videos, I would be practicing at home, doing whatever I could to be a better athlete. What is your genetic makeup?
It's the combination of both you guys. I was obsessed with
Yeah.
it, and I was a perfectionist, and it worked good and bad because like it developed my work ethic. But at the same time, I was like really hard on myself. I was not exactly the most kindest, and so I think I made just the whole journey a little bit tougher than it needed to be. But for me, I'm a perfectionist in like anything that I do. So yeah, no, that's something that still follows me to this day. How I approach with people, how I approach different tasks. So yeah, I'm definitely a perfectionist and like a student of the game. I love to learn, get to like the nitty gritty, and
Yeah.
really try to figure that out from the ground up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And how much being an Asian American, a person of color in the sport, in this world, informed your sport, the perfectionism? How has that impacted your journey?
Yeah, no, so I mean, like growing up, I definitely was kind of like the oddball in terms of,
Mm.
coming from an Indian background. Not many kids at that time, were into sports or anything in the arts or anything like that. So when I decided to do this and I put so much time into it, a lot of people, blatantly just came up to me like, "Hey, man, you're wasting your time." They're telling my parents, he should quit, do something more
Interesting.
realistic.
Wow.
So I got a lot of that growing up, and just even growing up, people within my own household, I had to make them believers too, right? Because, my family came here in '82, and their only options were, to put food on the table and to earn money. They didn't really have the option to venture out into interests or passions, which I understood when they came into this country. But then, coming as I guess would I be like a second generation being born here, I had like a lot more opportunities. So I definitely wanted to do different things. So definitely got a lot of pushback growing up. So that's why it kind of ingrained in me like I had to do things perfect to the point where no one else could see a flaw in that. And maybe
Mm,
even that sometimes still people were poking at it. So
Yeah.
it's like a uphill battle.
truth. Truth. So
Yeah. What
true.
was your parents' response to you wanting to play basketball?
They were like really supportive. Like they didn't really know how to go about it, right? Like AAU or trainers, they're like, man, this kid loves to do it, and he spends three,
Yeah.
4 hours. We're just gonna try to find a way to just support him in any way possible. But definitely, like as I was saying, like me getting cut throughout high school and stuff like that. As any parent, they want their kid to be in the most successful place possible. But just something internally. I just had this thing where like I just thought I could do it. And yeah, like even like so like my mom, she worked at a radiology facility in Silver Spring, Maryland. That's like near Washington, D.C. And I think at the time I just got cut from my freshman team, and she was working at the front desk, and this one patient, she was just raving about how her daughter just made a Division I scholarship. And so now my mom just came running to the front desk, and she's like, "Hey, will you be able to help my son out?" Because she just
Wow.
didn't know about it. And so yeah,
Yeah.
Miss Connie was a huge help in terms of showing me the ropes, push me in, or putting me in the right directions, and eventually finding the right coaches and trainers. But my parents were super supportive. It's just like, they didn't really know what to do because this wasn't like, kind of like their forte.
Yeah.
Hmm.
That's incredible. This is really cool. So,
No,
we're stoked that
de-
you're here.
definitely. No, I'm super excited. I met Laura at Athletes for Hope, and then just like our
Yeah.
first initial conversation, you don't really connect with so many people like Laura, like yourself, who's been in your same shoes and understands, being an Asian American and going through this. So definitely
Yeah.
excited to be on this.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
actually a really good point.
Right?
We
Like
should,
there's not many of us.
No,
Yeah.
not really.
There's not many of us. It's sports is not the thing that Asian Americans are pushed in.
Yeah.
Like I think about my sister. She was an amazing tennis player, like amazing tennis player. But my
Mhm.
parents, I don't know why, but in that sort of stereotypical, and it's only really my mom, but she got sort of pushed into piano. And I mean, I think she kicks herself now that she didn't get into it more, but she was a phenomenal tennis player. She was like athletic, right, Joy? She was like an incredible
Yeah.
athletic human.
Yeah, she does. Yeah. I mean, she still
Um,
moves like an athlete, which is,
oh, yeah, she's
yeah.
amazing.
But that's a
It,
good point. Let's actually ask that question.
yeah, go for
Because
it.
this is something really unique with us is that we're Asian American athletes. And, when me and Laura were athletes in the 80s and 90s, there was not much representation. But people that liked us in our sports, and you had mentioned there was very few people that look like you. And even on a professional level, if I think about like the NBA or anything that you would see on screen, that is not the norm, And so how is that being in your sport and your experiences, like being in,
Definitely.
yeah,
Yeah, no,
in high
I
school and college?
actually
Yeah.
like I actually felt like that was actually what made me feel like a little bit better about myself, where I was able to do something not many people thought I could do, and I could do it. And like for me, like I think personal growth has always been something I get really excited about, whether the
Mhm.
outcome be points or money, whatnot. But like it's the process of like, oh man, like you actually worked upon yourself and like you leveled up. Like that's something that I take home and I'm really proud about myself like every day, and that helps me get through tough moments. But like definitely growing up, there wasn't too many. But then actually like in 2017 during my college years, I came across a group called Crossover, Basketball Scholars and Academy, and this actually was one community organization where it would take like Indian American athletes, and then we would go all the way to like Chennai, India, and teach kids
Wow.
basketball, not for the point to make them the next Lisa Leslie or Michael Jordan, but using basketball as like a development tool to improve like educational rates. So like it gives them an incentive to come to school every day because hey, we're teaching you how to play basketball. It's fun. And so just seeing the impact of what sports could do to kids that, these kids had no shoes and, their room was actually the size of, I don't know, I can't show you my room now, but it's very small, right? And imagine like 4 or 5 family members into that. But the type of positive, demeanor they had, outlook, and they just like enthusiasm, just wanted to play, just like, oh wow, like we have a really, in terms of like really big influence. And on that same trip, I got to meet a lot of people that I actually used to watch on TV, that used to play at University of Hawaii, University of
That's
Maryland.
awesome.
Wow.
And I looked up to those guys and they worked out with me. I got their numbers and also girls as well. They played at Brown University and I think
Wow.
Harvard University. I was like, oh wow, like there's other people out there and it was really cool to connect with that. And then even after that, there's actually, and specifically for like for basketball, there's like Indo-Pak tournaments. So basically like all they
Mm.
see, whether that be, Pakistani, Indian, just people that are from like South Asia coming together and playing at these tournaments over the summer. So, and there would be like a good outing of like 60, 70, at the time it
Wow.
was like, I think only guys, but 70 people coming out and all competing. And they're actually pretty good. I was like, oh wow, like I didn't even think these guys existed. So, yeah, definitely like as I think my career went on, and as I got older, I think the times were changing, and then more and more people were actually getting their kids involved into sports and or playing basketball. So, but definitely something that I do like wear as like a like pridefully in terms of proud about myself being able to be like a part of like a kind of like an exclusive club in a way, but definitely
Yeah.
something positive.
That's
That's
awesome.
incredible. I mean, to use a sport in a different way than just winning
That's
is
right.
is incredible. Me and Laura talk about this all the time because she's a mom and I work with kids, and it's this perspective of using sports as a way of like, there's so much more than just being like with
Yep.
us in gymnastics. It was like only being an Olympian, and
Yeah,
that was sort of the goal when we started. It was like the transition of having gymnastics be fun to something that would be competitive, but that there's so many variants in that. And so it's
that's right.
incredible to use sport in a different way, and that it's like Laura always says, this is not necessarily being a champion, but a champion at life.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
And that
The
actually
quality
like
of that.
that crossover trip was the reason, or kind of opened up like, because I always had an innate feeling to want to help others. That was always something that was just ingrained in me. But I also wanted to do sports at the same time. And then that trip realized like, oh, like there's this field called sports philanthropy. And that was the first type of like, okay, I can use sports to help people. And that
Yeah.
was kind of like that first seed in terms of creating Usher. I didn't think of it at the time, but like it kind of like put a spark in my brain like, hey, this is what I want to do in terms of my life, prior or after basketball ends. Because to your point, like yeah, I didn't make it to the NBA and stuff like that, but like a lot of the lessons and tools, it really helped me just develop as a person, just as a human being. And I think that's something that a lot of parents should look at in terms of how it can help kids, because there's a lot of life lessons that in sports that can give to you without actually putting you in harm, if that makes sense,
Yeah.
so
Mm.
it's a safe way to like kind of find yourself. So definitely agree with everything that you said in terms of how sports can be bigger than just winning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have a question because mental health is still very stigmatized, especially in athlete worlds, definitely in Asian American community. How did you find your way to understanding mental health, to taking care of yourself? Because I know for Joy and me, it was just deal with it. Everything was always just deal with it. Quit your crying, suck it up, be bigger, just smile. A lot of it was for me hidden behind smiles. But how did you find your way to understanding that mental health was a journey to go inward and to take care of you?
That's a great question. So like for me, like I talk to a therapist now. I'm like 27, right? So I'm now just understanding, oh, this is why I used to do things, back then. So what I realized talking to him now, like during middle school, high school, like I suffered from like real bad anxiety. I just thought it was nerves. Like I was just nervous all the time. But
Mm.
I realized like it was deeper than that based off, a lot of like childhood traumatic stuff that I went through as a kid, moving around, stuff that I saw in high school and everything like that. So, to your point, a lot of it was I had to put on this brave face in terms of keeping the family together, if that makes sense.
Mm,
Like
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't afforded the opportunity like, hey, I need help, because I realized everything around me was crumbling, right? So I was like, okay,
mm,
I gotta be strong and be there for other people at a young age. So I had to grow up a little bit faster, and because of that, it's not good now, but like I can hide things really well. Like I can be smiling like this and everything, but internally is a whole different thing.
yeah.
And going through high school and middle school, music was really big, just like being able to zone out and stuff like that. I remember I would watch like motivational videos before the day just to get me through the day, get the confidence just to get through the day. And yeah, a lot of it was just, I didn't really know how to voice my stuff. And like I remember like during college or even like high school too, I would have to take like 2, 3 hour naps before practice or just to calm down in order to go there, right?
Wow.
So
Yeah.
because like basketball meant so much to me, because at that point, I internalized a lot of the negative things that were happening in life in terms of reflection of me, right? So I'm like, okay, I'm the issue. Because I think, one thing I learned, like to deal with traumatic things in life, one thing that we do as individuals is like we try to blame ourselves in order to get a better understanding or have control of what's happening around us. So I was okay, I'm the issue and maybe I can fix it. So, because of like I was internalizing a lot of things, and um, I would just put so much pressure on basketball to want to change how I view myself, right? Because a lot of myself is based off of other people's validation, how they viewed me.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, definitely wasn't the healthiest. A lot of trial and error. Definitely did a lot of things growing up, whether that be drugs and alcohol, just doing that stuff just to get through it. I remember I would be more excited for the parties on the weekends than the games and practices, because I won't feel that anxious. But I was not ready to let go of that identity, right? Because if I let that go, then I'm really stuck with who I really was and what I'm felt faced with on a day-to-day basis that no one else really knew. And so I think it came to a point where like senior year and college, Like I was like excessively like drinking a lot, and that's when it kind of clicked my into my brain. And I think one day after practice, like my mom called me, and she has a really good intuition. And she's like, "Hey, like, are you doing okay?" I was like, "No, I'm fine." But she like kept asking that like five, six times. And then at the seventh time, I kind of broke down. I was like, "Hey, no, like I'm struggling." Like because at that time we won our like our conference championship, and I thought, okay, all my worries and everything's gonna disappear. But the scariest thing is like we won it, and that night I felt the same, and I was like, "Oh man, I'm into some deep trouble. Like this is something serious."
Mm.
And so that's when I started to kind of ask my mom, like, who was and my dad, like, who were big in like the whole spirituality part of it. I was like, hey, can you send me some stuff that I was interested in? And slowly I was experimenting and not experimenting, but like just dabbling into it, wanting to learn about it. And I realized, okay, like I've tried everything else underneath this bright sun. I've yet to try these things. So all right, let me try it out. And then I started to see some progress. And then from there, I was okay. Let me just keep going with this, and that's where it kind of developed into ASVA and wanting to go inwards. Yeah,
Wow. Thank you for sharing.
no
Yeah.
worries. Yeah,
Yeah.
ASVA is a performance wellness program dedicated to helping athletes achieve peak performance and personal fulfillment through innovative approaches focusing on neuromuscular regeneration, re-education, and retention. ASVA empowers athletes to find balance in mind, body, and emotions. Check out the links in our show notes for additional information about ASVA and how they can support you in your journey.
With that, we're talking about athlete over the lifespan. You've been through a journey. So how has that meaning of athlete evolved for you over time, given your journey?
yeah. I think it's kind of like the ethos of what ASVA is. Like for me, harnessing the power of self that you can see in the back is like it can be applied to anyone, right? Like being the best version of yourself. So for me, I think everybody should want to perform or be proficient at the highest level of whatever their life path is, right? Whether you're a postman or a teacher, whatever that might be, this can be very beneficial to to whatever you need to do. So, for me, like as an athlete, developing over the years is just like I want to like my main goal is like I want to be comfortable in my own skin and like actually mean it. Like when I look in the mirror, like I shouldn't have to wait on like my bank account or what somebody's saying or followers and stuff like that. Like I want to genuinely look in the mirror and say I'm proud of you and really be comfortable in my skin. That's my ultimate goal in life because um I was just tired of just having to wait for something, someone or something to lift me up and that can get exhausting, right? And that's actually where a lot of anxiety comes from because like okay, where is that going to come from, right? So like my biggest thing and like as an athlete, like growing over time is just my main goal is like wanting to be comfortable in my own skin and just yeah, that's my main thing.
Yeah. It's powerful to
Yeah.
feel comfortable in our skin.
And you currently work with athletes through your organization as well. And was that something you always wanted, like envisioned that to be? Like you wanted to work with athletes, you wanted that career move, you wanted to stay with sports.
Yeah, so like when I graduated, from my grad school, you know, again like going back to my mental health, I knew I had to create something where I can work on my own timetable because at the time I was thinking like, man, how do I tell my employer I need a mental health day two, three times a week? Like I don't know
Mm,
how do I tell that? So I was like, all right, man, you need to figure out something where you're working on yourself, but then also helping others. And it kind of clicked with me when I found it because at that time, I think like Simone Biles was coming out, Naomi Osaka was coming out. I was like, okay,
yeah.
I'm not the only one going through this. And
Yeah.
then a big piece of it was actually my co-founder and my mentor. His name is Ishan Sivanand. So he's actually a Himalayan monk. He was born in India, born in a monastery. And his father is known as the father of ancient healing. So he comes from like a lineage of like 2,500 years. So my family has been following him since I was like 11, 12, like young age. And so kind of like a side note, along with basketball, music is very big in my life. So I played an Indian percussion instrument, like picture like the bongos. They're
Mhm.
called tabla. So whenever like a spiritual master or someone of like him would come in the DC area, they would call up my mom and they would tell me to come accompany him for like the different hymns and
No
stuff like
That's
that.
way.
awesome.
That's
That's
so
Yeah.
amazing.
cool.
That's so cool. Yeah.
So like I've come across like a lot of different sages and stuff like that. But Ishan was the first one that was he was younger and he spoke English and he had a background in Muay Thai and martial arts. So he had an athlete background. And so
Hmm.
a lot of his discourses, I was able to connect with that. I was like, okay, cool. And so a lot of the research that I did for my thesis paper was based off of his work. And so just as a fan, I DM'd him my paper um, just as a fan, like on LinkedIn. I didn't think he was going to read it, but he ended up reading the whole 30-page paper. And he thought it was a great idea. And so together we created USHA because, him as a holistic wellness expert and me as an athlete, we wanted to create like a performance wellness program because at the time and how you guys like alluded to it, that stigma was really, really real, like even myself. So the only way I could get buy-in with a lot of these athletes was like, hey, I'm gonna help you play better, but the whole regimens and the protocols that we teach these athletes, more importantly, it's gonna help with that inner engineering, right? But like
Mm,
they're masked as if a strength and conditioning coach is teaching you this. So I was like, oh wow, like that's something where there's a space that we can really help people, and I don't really think there's too many out there because not to say like comms and headspace they don't work because but they don't really speak to an athlete, right? Because they're as an athlete, like you just said, like we're supposed to put on a tough face and push through it and stuff like that. Kind of like the messaging and the stuff that they're trying to get to those type of people, it doesn't really resonate with athletes or high performers. So I was like, okay, maybe
Yeah.
we can create something where, we're working in and working out and combining performance wellness. And that's where, my passion in terms of, keeping sports in my life and then not wanting other people to go through what I went through and having to like suffer in silence because even just now, like talking to my therapist for like 1 or 2 years, I made like so much progress, right? And it's just
mm,
even like just talking. So I was like, okay, man, I think like with Ashwa, it's kind of like the intermediate piece of like the athlete and talking because with a lot of
yeah.
our regimens, it's like it's about releasing, right? And when releasing, it comes to the surface level, and at that point, instead of talking to me, I'd rather you then go talk to someone like Laura who knows how to get to the root cause of things and really chop it off. Because what I realized, like a lot of my anxieties and depression stuff like that I was facing on the court, I wasn't afraid of the other person. It was reminding me of something like way back that I didn't even know of
Yeah,
subconsciously.
for sure.
So I think like, and the biggest thing, like with the whole Ashfa part and the fact that like, I do this myself every day before even like teaching to others, is like when I was actually comfortable to be able to sit with my own thoughts, that's
Hmm.
when I had the courage to then speak up. Until like you're
Yeah.
not comfortable sitting with your own thoughts,
Right.
there's no way when someone's, hey, talk it out, stuff like that, like that's not gonna happen. So I had to first be aware of it, be say,
Hmm.
hey, it's okay that these things happen.
Yeah.
Okay, now I want to see, okay, how can we move forward and do that type of and like heal from that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That really resonates with me because it was sort of what me and Laura did on our first season was we shared our story. And neither one of us had ever shared our story with each other. And we went through a very similar journey. We had the same coaches and we never told each other what we went through. And you're right. Like once you say it, there is something powerful about that, but it
Yeah.
also gives you agency and language that you didn't have before. And
Yep.
so it's empowering, and it's so interesting because I do think like the suffering and silence is a theme for athletes, which is just like really interesting because you're right, we are trained to be tough competitors. And any sort of sign of weakness is sort of like the antithesis of what we've been trained.
Yep.
Um, but for some reason, when we talk about our vulnerability and these things that, you know, um, I don't even think that they're like these huge struggles. It's just life, it's being an athlete. You're going to have mental, like breaks. Like
Yep.
Yeah.
that is very common. Like you're talking about Simone Biles and Naomi Osaka. Like that is part of being an athlete. There is mental training and it's something that is so taboo in sports. So that's really encouraging to hear like a shift of culture. Are there things in your sport when you are an athlete that you see like has it evolved quite a bit since you've been an athlete, being on the other side?
I think now like it's really cool to see like coaches are wanting to, implement like breathing coaches or like
Yeah.
ASVA or some type of mental therapist, something like that, because they're actually seeing, you have to be able to look at an athlete as a whole.
Hmm.
So like
That's
if you're
right.
only like catering to just the performance side and not like the human being side, obviously they're not going to be playing well. So it's really cool to see like they are willing to wanting to incorporate this in their programs. And to your point, like, with Usher, like, and what we're trying to do is, and what I try to impart with a lot of these coaches and players is like improving mental resiliency. And like you just said, like
Mm,
a lot of the struggles that we're going to, it's not like they are catastrophic. Like I don't want to minimize, anyone what they've been through, but like that is
yeah.
life, right? And one thing that's constant is, the sun's gonna happen and the sun's gonna come up and things are going to happen. So with that in mind, like how can we address that? And how
Yeah.
we are able to do that is improve our mental resiliency skills, and that can actually be just done by through your mind, your body, your breath, because your body, kind of already knows how to survive. Like, even like a simple example of like me being born into this world, no one taught you how to breathe, right? You just naturally knew how to do that. So if you give yourself like the time and space to be able to connect like at a higher frequency, yes, you're going to be playing great at whatever sport that you're doing, but you're going to be able to address a lot of tougher situations much, much better. And that's the main thing um, that I try to like teach people or try to showcase to people is like, I'm not trying to remove stress out your life because I can never do that and no one can. I just want to give you the confidence to know that you can actually use that as like a learning tool to lift yourself up. So,
Yeah.
in terms of what I'm seeing right now, I think a lot more parents and coaches are looking for like youth development tools. I think like I didn't even come up with that term. I actually reached out to a player, and I was talking to his dad, and he went through the whole website and my whole spiel. He's like, "Oh man, I need my son to do this because he needs to know how to deal with life outside of basketball, right?" And I was like, "Okay, someone actually, you're getting
Yeah.
it."
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
I mean,
amazing.
that's such a huge thing because when you exit a sport, that is also traumatic.
Yep.
When,
Hmm.
like you said earlier, like how your identity is wrapped up so much in being an athlete, you being a basketball player. What support do you get on the exit? And that is not the same because you've been coached all your life
Yep.
and then it ends and you
Yep.
no longer have somebody telling you what to do,
Yep.
you know? So that's
And I'm glad you
incredibly
mentioned that.
impactful.
Like I visited my buddy out in LA, and he's a former athlete, and he's now transitioned into a neuroscience program at USC. But me and him were talking, and they were like, look, man, like we were talking like, man, like outside of the whole collegiate world or sports world, no one really cares that you're an athlete, right? Like,
Nope.
and out in the real world, they do not care. And we were talking
Yeah.
like, man, like we were not exposed to different things to prepare ourselves for
Yep.
after, playing. And I was just, me and him were talking like, man, we were lucky that we kind of brought it upon ourselves to find different passions that we were into outside of basketball, right? His was the whole medical side in terms of neuroscience. Mine was, wellness and wanting to help people through sports. But a lot of my, other teammates, it was just, ball is life, right? And but then once
Yeah.
Yep.
that happens, like what resources are there to then like, okay, like you've gotten like a lot of great skills from the sport. How can we transfer that into like a career or something else? And um I am seeing like a little bit more of that, but definitely looking back during my years, like like it's even nowadays, like it's a business, right? Like we're going to use you to the best of your abilities, and then once we're able to win or not win, you kind of go about your ways. But
Yeah.
I think it's really important to be able to prepare these kids of financial literacy and just different skill
Yes.
sets,
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
I kind of learned the hard way. Like we both realized, like people outside of our sports really don't care that we're
No,
athletes. So
totally. But I
Well,
agree with
yeah.
that. I think it's so true that we it's not just like as we're talking, we put so much pressure on ourselves as the athletes that we have to be the ones to keep it together, to work on our health, or we have to be the ones to go out there and do all this work.
Yeah.
And like Joy said, suddenly we don't have coaches and to guide us as we did before. But how important it is that we have community, that you
Yep.
have your old teammate to reach out to, that we can, get together and we can share our experiences and know that we're all trying and experimenting
Yeah.
with different things so that we can transfer that athlete mentality that we all have
Mm-hmm.
and use it somewhere else where it's going to benefit not just ourselves, but so many people.
People.
I mean,
Yep.
you've just taken
Yeah.
your power that you did with your amazing career as a basketball player, and
You
you have
built
now
something.
shifted it
Yeah. You
into
built
something
your own community with this, which is crazy, you
like
know?
in your inner world and your outer world. And you
Yeah.
did that. And now we get together, we're sharing stories. And I love that we are finding each other and we're recognizing that we all have similar stories.
Yeah.
And it's really cool that we're getting this new, I feel like it's such a victory. It's so healing to just touch base with each other and to know that we are sitting in community and we're doing amazing stuff um, with our athlete mentality. We are all forever athletes.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm glad that you mentioned that because like one of my coaches, like he was like my personal trainer, or not personal, but like he was like my skills trainer and stuff like that. So I saw him on a day-to-day basis, during the whole pandemic time. I was training, but like he like I didn't realize it now, but at the time it's like what I teach on this basketball court is just not for this, it's like for life and beyond. And the fact that I think one of the biggest thing he told me and one of the reasons why I was comfortable from stepping away from the game was like, hey, look, like I don't know who you were 2, 3 years ago, but who you are now is 180 change degrees, and it's not going to change if you have a Georgetown jersey on or some type of jersey on. It's not going to validate that or change it or make it bigger. Like you've already done that. So if that is why you're doing this, you need to kind of check in with yourself and say, okay, why am I doing this? Then I clicked in my head like, oh, what I'm searching for, a bouncing ball can give me those answers. I gotta go inwards now.
Mm-hmm.
And ever since then, he follows me on Instagram and I give him my updates. He's like, man, like I'm real proud of what you're doing, man. And
It's
and
awesome.
as an entrepreneur, like, I definitely have a lot more L's than I take W's, but like the small victories and stuff like that, he's like, man, you just keep your head down, keep going, like what you're doing, it's gonna, it's gonna come out. But like, he just like the biggest thing is just he just sees how I've changed as a person, and that really means a lot in terms of for me to want to keep going and whatever addressing different adversities and stuff like that. So I think like mentorship, like what you just said, is very big because my skills trainer were like always they're the reason why I kept going in terms of like just basketball, but this in terms of life too, like they were big because the funny thing, like I would play the best with their teams, like their AAU teams, because like in their eyes, I couldn't do any wrong, right? Like they didn't really care about Rohan as a basketball player. Like every time I met
Mhm.
them, they're like, "Hey, how was your day? Did you see this movie? Did you see that?" I was like, oh, you don't really care about me as a basketball. Like I was free, right? So then I can and when you play free and like you feel like I can't fail and like you're gonna always be there for me regardless of what happens, that's really powerful. So
Mm-hmm.
the
Yeah,
fact that you guys are creating this community and you're able to give that to other people, that's one thing I want to share. Like the more and more like people can be like a maybe not a mentor, just being able to be there for somebody without anything in return and just being said, hey yo, I'm just proud of you for just even trying. I think that's even like that's really powerful for anybody just trying to do something like worthwhile in life.
agreed.
Agreed.
So, I know we're kind of wrapping up, but we have a couple questions left
Gotcha.
for you, if that's okay. Um, so number one, thinking back to that point where you were kind of in a tough spot, what would you say to people, to student athletes or athletes who are in that space right now?
Um, Definitely, I think like biggest thing is like awareness, right? Like at least just like admit to yourself, okay, like I don't feel good. Like some days, like even now, like I'll try to keep myself busy, but it makes it worse, right? So I'm like, I just sit down with myself, like, okay, I feel pretty bad right now. then from there, like you're able to kind of work backwards in terms of like, okay, why am I feeling like this? So a lot of it I would say is like being just aware of just how you're feeling, your thoughts and stuff like that. And then also after that, like, definitely reach out for help, and just at least tell somebody that you're going through something. And then after that, like once you're able to be aware of it and then you're able to talk about it, try to find some type of like self-care routine, right? About just being able to regulate yourself. I think a lot of it, um, I always tell people like anxiety is either, or a lot of like anxieties and depressions, like we're either thinking about the past or we're worried about the future. Sometimes
Mhm.
we're not really present about what's going on. So having some type of self-regulating routine can be really, really powerful.
Mm.
Um, because I think that's the biggest thing. Like I said, like stress is always going to happen in your life. It's about how you're able to address it. So if we're able to create more space in terms of what the problem is and like my reaction, then it's going to be better off. But like if your problem is this and your reaction and where you are right now is like this, the end result is going to be not the greatest, right? So if you're able to create space for yourself and have those mechanisms or routines to be able to self-regulate and then go out into action, I think those are three things I think that could be really powerful for anybody going through something.
Right.
Thank you for that. Okay, question number 2. We're definitely going to put your website in the show notes and everything so people can find their way to you. But can you give us a feel for if someone's going to reach out to you, what would be the process of getting linked up to ASVA?
Definitely. It's like on our website, what we offer is a 9-week program. So we actually, what me and Ashan did before we launched it, we did our own intervention studies with doctors from the Mayo Clinic, University of Cincinnati, and Johns Hopkins University, where I was teaching athletes in North America, Africa, Europe, via Zoom during the pandemic, these protocols. And so after that, we saw that our protocols made a big difference in improving anxiety symptoms, depression symptoms, severe insomnia, and just overall quality of life. And then also improving sports-related emotional health, so like mental toughness, positive self-talk, or positive self-talk and self-confidence. So once we saw those numbers, we wanted to replicate that into like a Udemy online course in which anybody can access that, no matter where you are, and you're able to have a tool on demand where you can actually practice upon yourselves without me being there. So essentially, it's a 9-week program combined of guided audios and videos as if I'm teaching it to you. And basically, they can go through the whole, regimen, and you'll definitely see a big benefit in terms of a before and after. And usually, what our protocols are, and the whole regimen, it's no more than 30 minutes. I realize anything past 30 minutes, I lose people's attention. And but since it's 30 minutes, it's either can act as a pregame warm up or a cool down, and it can be
Smart.
really
That's really
implemented and
smart.
very flexible into your daily training schedule. So yeah, that's how you can get connected, and definitely like for bigger teams and stuff like that. I definitely do come out in person and implement the program as like a
Awesome.
1-day workshop. And then after that, the whole online course, they kind of, so it's self-paced, so they can do it by themselves after that.
Fabulous.
Fantastic.
And the last question is for everybody.
Mhm.
So some years ago, my partner and I were out and about, and we were trying to not think about the business of life. And, we created this game we called it Discuss. And Joy has come over. We put like little questions and things onto Jenga. So now we're doing what's called Lightning Discuss for everybody. So I'm going to say a statement, a question, and I'm going to say the word discuss. And everybody is going to share the quick answer. Don't think too hard. There's
Okay.
no debating it. Everybody
No
just
wrong
answers.
answers.
No wrong
Yeah.
Okay.
answers. It's just whatever. Okay, ready? So lightning discuss. So Joy and Rohan, if you could be a proton, electron, or neutron, which would you be? Discuss.
Neutron.
Oh,
Why?
why?
Just like being able to stay even keel in the middle, I think that's the best way. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Love it.
I would
Joy.
say proton because you are like positively charged. So that's why I would choose it. What
Love
about
it.
you, Laura?
I would be an electron because I like to travel and I would probably go visit all kinds of different other places. So
Nice.
That's really interesting. We
fabulous.
all named a different one.
So we made a complete atom together.
There you go.
Yeah.
Hey.
There we go.
Well, thank you so much,
Thank you
Rohan.
so
This was
much.
amazing. We are just so privileged to have you on this show. You're our first guest for season 2. And so we're so excited to launch with you. You are just amazing and doing amazing things. And we are excited to see what happens with ASVA and all the things that you've done. So
No, thank you so much. Appreciate the opportunity to come on this platform and speak with you guys. Hopefully, it wasn't too much of me talking, but I definitely enjoyed being here, and it's actually pretty therapeutic being able to share my story and stuff like that with you guys. So definitely, big thank you, and hopefully this platform can get bigger and bigger and bigger, and more people can share their stories.
Sure. Absolutely. We'd love to have you back again sometime.
Yeah, no, I definitely will.
Okay, cool. Thank you
all right,
so
well,
much.
thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, that was awesome.
That was amazing. He was
What an
incredible.
amazing first guest. Thank you, Rohan Piple. We appreciate you so much.
And a basketball player.
Super basketball player. And an Asian
We're a
American
huge fan.
basketball player.
I know. And we're fans of basketball too. It's like
Yes.
perfect.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, he was great and so excited that we got to interview him and hear his story. So
We bleed purple and gold.
yeah.
Lakers forever.
Yeah.
So we're so excited for our next episode with our guest, Ali Tillinghast, who's the founder and president of Thriving Not Surviving. She is a former international competitive sailor and collegiate athlete. We can't wait to hear her story. Stay tuned.
Yeah. I love you.
I love you more.
I love you most.
Hi. I still love you most.
Thanks for tuning in. If you have any questions, please reach out to us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok.
Share and follow us on Amazon, Spotify, and Apple. Help us out and leave a 5-star review. Thanks.